Regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russian forces appear to be intensifying their summer offensive campaign in Ukraine, driven partly by concerns over changing weather conditions and partly by political pressures. The dry ground in summer provides an opportunity for large-scale Russian armored advances, but as autumn arrives, rains will turn the battlefield into muddy quagmires, impassable for vehicles. In addition to weather channels, the new sanctions deadline imposed by US President Donald Trump is compelling Russia to act. So how is Russia conducting this summer campaign? Which areas are becoming the hottest flashpoints on the battlefield? And behind the relentless Russian offenses, what challenges are Ukrainian soldiers facing? The answers will be covered in the main content of today's video.
The Russian forces shot down more than 70 Ukrainian drones in oblasts such as Bryansk, Kursk, and Oryol from Sunday evening to Monday morning, according to Russian Defense Ministry. The ministry also said that the Russian forces on Sunday destroyed Ukraine's military airport facilities, air defense missile system positions, and long-range drone storage and launch sites in 139 areas. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on Monday that its forces repelled multiple attacks from Russia in directions of North Sloviansk and Kursk as battles continue on the front line. Ukraine's aviation and missile forces hit 8 areas of concentration of Russian personnel, weapons, and military equipment, destroyed Russian armored vehicles, and intercepted their drones and cruise missiles, said the Ukrainian report. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday, August 4th, that Ukrainian troops were fighting a variety of foreign mercenaries in northeastern Ukraine and vowed a response. Zelensky has previously accused Moscow of recruiting Chinese fighters for its war effort against Ukraine, charges Beijing denied, while North Korea has also provided thousands of its own troops.
The Vovchansk sector is very important. It's an honor for me to award you, warriors of the 57th Brigade. I heard the report. We understand that it's not easy. Still, you're Ukrainians. You're fighting Tajiks, Uzbeks, Chinese, and Pakistanis, as your commander said.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker told Reuters on Monday, August 4th, that he expects many more countries to announce over the coming weeks that they will provide funds to buy American military equipment and ammunition for Ukraine using a new mechanism, after the Netherlands said it would contribute 500 million euros to the scheme.
Today's announcement is regarding the Dutch and their purchase of the first package of equipment and munitions to be bought by the Dutch and to be provided through the NATO procedure. The Dutch are just the first of many. You're going to see a series of announcements in the coming weeks. You know, when we announced this facility that allowed our NATO allies to buy U.S. equipment and provide that to Ukraine for their defense, you know, we had a lot of our allies raise their hand and line up. A lot of them are coming together in groups to pool their money and their resources together to provide these armaments and munitions. And so, you know, it's the whole purpose of NATO and what makes this alliance the strongest is this platform we have to communicate amongst allies and to really talk about these issues and come up with solutions. Well, ultimately, there's not going to be a battlefield resolution of this war. It's going to have to be through diplomacy and through negotiation. What we're seeing on the battlefield is just a complete slaughter of soldiers on both sides, but especially on the Russian side. They appear to be willing to throw a lot of bodies and kill a lot of their fellow countrymen. But at the same time, President Trump wants this war to end. He knows we need a ceasefire and ultimately an enduring peace process and deal. And so it's going to be negotiated resolution of this war. Nobody's going to win this war. Both sides are taking significant losses. And President Trump has identified that this will bring President Putin to the table to negotiate. And, you know, again, it's just one of the many things that we're able to do with the sanctions and several other cards that are yet to be played. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, President Trump has, announced that if this deadline comes and goes and there's no ceasefire and Russia is unwilling to end this war that's killing thousands of soldiers every single day, that he'll put secondary sanctions on the countries that are buying Russian oil. That includes, China, India, and Brazil. And those countries are certainly subsidizing the war. They're providing the cash that Putin requires to continue the war effort, and President Trump sees that and has identified that as the next lever that's available to get this war to end and end the killing.
U.S. President Donald Trump said last month the U.S. would supply weapons to Ukraine paid for by European allies, but did not provide details on how this would be done. On August 4th, the Kremlin announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin may meet with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff this week.
We do not rule out the possibility of such a meeting between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff. The dialogue continues. The United States continue their mediation efforts in search ways to reach Ukrainian settlement. These efforts are very important, including in the context of the ongoing direct Russian-Ukrainian negotiations. The work continues. We do preserve our commitment to the idea that the preferable way to settle the Ukrainian problem should be reached by political and diplomatic means. We are always happy to see Mr. Witkoff in Moscow, and we are always happy to have contacts with Mr. Witkoff. We consider them important, substantial, and very useful.
Currently, Russia is reportedly racing against time to seize territories and secure the strongest possible position should it enter peace negotiations with Kyiv. Russian forces are fully exploiting the summer, intensifying their offensive against Ukrainian positions, consolidating strongholds, and achieving small but consistent advances. CNN reported that over the past 4 days, on-the-ground reporters have witnessed, quote, rapid shifts in territorial control in some of the most heavily besieged towns in the Donetsk region. Staff at a field hospital in the Pokrovsk area in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region say they had been forced to relocate after the Russian troops' advance.
FPV drones make it difficult for us to bring wounded here, prevent us from transporting the wounded further away. Civilians, when they are on the move, they are targeted by the drones too. Even if civilians display white ribbons on their cars, it doesn't make a difference. A woman that has been admitted to this SDAB point was traveling in a car. She put out her hand, holding handbag, to signal that there were civilians in the car. They aimed at this handbag on purpose. Her hand that she was holding the handbag in, thinking they would not shoot at her, was very seriously injured. We have been here 16, maybe 17 days. I stopped counting, non-stop.
The Pokrovsk front is the most active in the Russian war against Ukraine, with 111,000 Russian soldiers amassed there for the summer offensive. For months, Ukraine has picked off Russian soldiers by the thousand around the frontline city of Pokrovsk, using small drones armed with bombs to tie down a numerically superior force. Now, though, Russian troops are creeping forward in a summer offensive that has probed weak spots in Ukraine's defenses, and last week saw some Russian soldiers enter the city for the first time. Fierce fighting in the area has kept doctors and medics working without a break, but this is nothing compared to the 90 days some soldiers spend on rotation on the contact line.
The front line has moved by 8 to 10 kilometers, for sure, over the past month. Our stab point has relocated. How long we will stay here, it is not clear. When it is green and everything is in bloom, it is possible for military vehicles to move around to hide from drones. That is one reason why the front line is moved. But the first and main reason is that Russians have accumulated huge numbers of human resources in the Pokrovsk area, as far as I know. That is why the front line moves. 36 days, without a day off. As a matter of fact, it is not that much. People on the front line stay there for 90 days. That's why I do not boast about my 36 days at the stabilization point. I have time to sleep. That's superb.
At this stage, Russia appears unwilling to accept a Washington-mediated peace agreement. However, at some point when a peace deal becomes the only viable option, especially if unfavorable weather hinders the rapid progress currently achievable, the Kremlin may need to reconsider its stance. Previously, President Trump issued a new ultimatum to President Putin, demanding that Moscow engage in peace talks regarding Ukraine within 10 to 12 days, or face a new tariff regime aimed at blocking the global sale of Russian energy products. And we will continue to update the latest information on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Thank you for your attention and for following along. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos.